Hey guys, it's me Kevin and welcome back to another AFL video, and today I'll be doing a hypothesis AFL video and delving into the question, what would the AFL look like if it was a truly national competition which started out in 1987? So as most of you know, the AFL was basically an extension of the VFL, which had 12 Victorian teams. Souths relocated to Sydney in 1982. Then the Eagles, Bears, and later the Crows were added to the competition and it turned into the AFL, and then it basically just expanded from there. But as a result, there are 10 Victorian AFL teams in the competition and none from places like Tasmania or the ACT, leading to many question the nationality of the competition and whether it is really a national competition or whether it's Victorian-centric. So in today's video, I'll be delving into what a truly national AFL competition would have looked like and how it would have been formed. Let's cast our minds back to 1986, a time when 9 clubs from Victoria were under serious financial risk. 7 of those about to go into administration if it hadn't been for the licence fares the Eagles and Bears provided to prop up the Victorian clubs. If that never happened, I think 8 of those clubs would have folded, leaving just 4 VFL teams remaining for 1987. And given that there would have been no 1987 season with just 4 clubs, they would have gone and started their new AFL competition. Those clubs would have been Carlton, Essendon, the Sydney Swans, and the Canberra Lions. Canberra Lions. Yes, in this hypothetical situation, Fitzroy would have been given 2 offers, one from Brisbane and one from Canberra, to relocate to one of those 2 cities in exchange for a huge sum of money from the owners. And Fitzroy took that offer. They moved to Canberra and hence were saved from any further financial trouble. And as for the Lions brand, as for that club, it would prove to be a masterstroke as it would allow them admission into the new AFL competition, something that several Victorian clubs would have only dreamed of at that point. So they would have been, to add to the 4 new clubs, they would have invited but all of Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland and Tasmania to field a team in this new AFL competition to take the number of teams up to 8. South Australia declined, however the West Coast Eagles, Brisbane Bears and Tasmania Devils all joined this new AFL competition, due to start in 1987. And what about that 8th spot? Well, the AFL smartly admitted that no Victorian supporter of any club other than Essendon and Carlton would have followed the competition if just Essendon and Carlton were in that competition. So instead, they decided to start a new Victorian club called the Melbourne Chargers to be sort of like the West Coast Eagles, where they represent the city as a whole for anyone of any club to support. Of course, the biggest club in the land, the Collingwood Magpies, would not stay out of the game for too long. After getting over their financial issues, they joined the AFL in 1990, justified by their huge following, and they proved to be an instant success, finishing 3rd in their first season in the competition. The AFL would expand to 10 teams in 1991, with South Australia finally agreeing to join the competition, fielding the Adelaide Crows. And in 1992, to the relief of all other VFL supporters, the VFL resumed in 1992 with the remaining 7 VFL clubs, albeit on a smaller scale and with their players on part-time wages. Both the AFL and VFL would expand in 1995, with both the Fremantle Dockers and Geelong Cats gaining admission into the AFL. Fremantle to add that to that second Perth team, whilst Geelong justified their regional location as part of admission into the AFL. Also in the VFL, they added Williamstown and Port Melbourne, the 2 biggest clubs from the VFA, partly also to create new zones for their under-18s program. In 1996, Ballarat would also join the VFL, whilst in 1997, Port Adelaide would become the 2nd South Australian side, crossing over from the SANFL into the AFL, and Richmond, the other big club, would finally gain their admission into the AFL after years of protesting from Richmond fans to be part of the national competition. The 2 most recent teams to join the AFL would be the Gold Coast Suns in 2011 and the Western Sydney Giants in 2012. So, how would the AFL and VFL look like to this day? Well, the AFL would consist of 16 teams. The Adelaide Crows, Brisbane Bears, Canberra Lions, Carlton Blues, Collingwood Magpies, Essendon Bombers, Fremantle Dockers, Geelong Cats, Gold Coast Suns, Melbourne Chargers, Port Adelaide Power, Richmond Tigers, Sydney Swans, Tasmania Devils, West Coast Eagles, and the Western Sydney Giants. Meanwhile, the VFL would consist of 14 teams, 8 standalone teams, and 6 reserve sides. The 8 standalone teams being Ballarat, Casey Demons, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, Port Melbourne, St Kilda, Footscray, and Williamstown. Meanwhile, the Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, Richmond, Melbourne Chargers, and Geelong reserves would all be in the VFL competition as well. Whilst the fate of the 13 existing clubs would be pretty self-explanatory, I'll touch on the Chargers, Canberra Lions, and Tasmania Devils quickly. So Melbourne Chargers, they would have been a pretty small club to start off with because a lot of the VFL fans would have been upset about losing their team at first, so they would have been interested in footy for a while. But over time, the Melbourne Chargers would have gained traction from supporters who basically accepted the new national competition, and particularly from Hawks, D's, Kangaroos, Bulldogs, Saints fans. They would have gained a lot of following from those clubs over time and would go on to be the biggest club in the AFL, the Melbourne Chargers. They would have also had a lot of Richmond followers as well for a period of time, and their home games were mainly used by Richmond fans to protest for their own team until Richmond got admission into the AFL, which has created a bit of a rivalry there. The main rival would be Carlton and Melbourne, obviously being the original Victorian, well, obviously Carlton and Essendon would have been the original Victorian rivalry, but out of Melbourne's part, Carlton would have been their original rival, as both teams fought for the premiership in 1987, which would have been ultimately won by Carlton. The Tasmania Devils and Canberra Lions would have been a lot larger than what they would be today if they were starting out today. Obviously, both were much stronger AFL heartlands back in the 80s than they are at this day, due to a lack of AFL support. But back then, when they would have started out back then, they would have turned into pretty strong clubs, with both Canberra and Tasmania averaging in the 20,000s for their home games. As you can see on the board there, I've got basically the premierships that each club would have hypothetically won. I don't know if this would have been exactly, but for argument's sake, I'm putting this as my premiership list. Tasmania, ironically, would prove to be the most successful in the competition with the most premierships, whilst Gold Coast, Western Sydney, and Fremantle would be the only teams yet to win a premiership. I hope you like this hypothetical video. Please like and subscribe. Comment what you thought of the video down below, as well as my hypothetical scenario. Check out some of my other videos, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.